Hockey is full of promising stars and potential legends. Every year, scouts travel thousands of miles to find the next Wayne Gretzky or Sidney Crosby. Teams invest millions in draft picks, hoping to find that generational talent who will lead them to Stanley Cup glory. Fans watch highlight reels of juniors phenoms, imagining what these young players might accomplish in the NHL. But the path from potential to greatness is rarely smooth, and many promising careers take unexpected turns. For every Connor McDavid who lives up to the hype, there are dozens of players who, for various reasons, never reach their projected heights. Some are derailed by injuries that rob them of their prime years. Others struggle with the mental aspects of the game, the pressure of expectations, or simply find themselves in the wrong situation at the wrong time. Today, we look at some of hockey's greatest what-ifs, players whose potential was undeniable, but whose careers left fans wondering what might have been. Before Sidney Crosby or Connor McDavid, there was Eric Lindros, the next one. Standing 6 feet 4 inches and weighing 240 pounds with the hands of a surgeon and skating ability that defied physics, Lindros was unlike anything hockey had ever seen. When the Quebec Nordiques selected him first overall in 1991, they thought they had secured a franchise cornerstone for the next decade. But Lindros refused to play for Quebec, forcing a trade to Philadelphia that changed the course of 2 franchises. In Philadelphia, Lindros was dominant, winning the Hart Trophy as league MVP in 1995. His combination of size, speed, and skill made him nearly unstoppable. Yet his career became defined not by his overwhelming talent, but by the concussions that repeatedly sidelined him. The most infamous came in 1999, delivered by New Jersey Scott Stevens in the playoffs. That hit and the many concussions that followed transformed Lindros from hockey's most dominant force to a cautious player. While he finished with 865 points in 760 games and earned Hockey Hall of Fame induction in 2016, fans will always wonder what Lindros might have accomplished with better health. Had he stayed healthy, we might now be discussing him alongside Gretzky and Lemieux as one of hockey's all-time greats. Few players in NHL history have been as electrifying as Pavel Bure. Nicknamed the Russian Rocket, Bure's blazing speed and highlight reel goals made him the most exciting player of his era. After defecting from the Soviet Union, Bure burst onto the NHL scene with the Vancouver Canucks in 1991, scoring 34 goals as a rookie and following that with back-to-back 60-goal seasons. Bure's skating was poetry in motion. He could accelerate from standstill to top speed faster than anyone, leaving defenders looking like they were moving in slow motion. His 1994 playoff performance nearly brought Vancouver its first Stanley Cup as he carried the Canucks to Game 7 of the finals against the New York Rangers. But Bure's greatest enemy wasn't opposing defenders. It was his own knees. Multiple knee surgeries began to rob him of his greatest asset, his speed. Despite scoring 58 goals for the Florida Panthers in 1999 to 2059 the following season, Bure's knees continued to deteriorate. By 2003, at just 31 years old, Bure was forced to retire after playing just 702 games. He finished with 437 goals and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2012, but his career was essentially half as long as it should have been. If not for his knee injuries, Bure might have threatened 700 or even 800 career goals. Instead, fans are left with memories of his brilliance and the sobering reality that his prime was cut tragically short. Including Mario Lemieux on this list might seem strange, given his 2 Stanley Cups, 6 scoring titles, and status as one of hockey's greatest players. But Lemieux's career represents perhaps hockey's greatest what-if because despite his incredible achievements, he never got to show his full potential over a complete career. When healthy, Lemieux was arguably the most talented player ever to lace up skates. At 6 feet 4 inches, he combined size, vision, hands, and scoring touch in ways that defied logic. He could dominate games like no one else, once scoring 5 goals 5 different ways in a single game, even strength, power play, shorthanded, penalty shot, and empty net. But Lemieux's career was a constant battle against his body. Back problems plagued him from early on. Then came the shocking diagnosis of Hodgkin's lymphoma in 1993, forcing him to undergo radiation treatments mid-season. He missed the entire 1994 to 95 season due to fatigue from his treatments and retired in 1997 due to ongoing health issues. His comeback in 2000 was miraculous, but by then, more health problems, including a heart condition, limited his playing time. When you consider that Lemieux missed over 400 games in his prime due to health issues, his career numbers 1,723 points in just 915 games become even more astounding. Had Lemieux enjoyed good health throughout his career, Wayne Gretzky's scoring records might well have a different owner today. While Lemieux's legacy as an all-time great is secure, hockey fans will always wonder what his final numbers might have been with a full, healthy career. In 1993, Alexandre Daigle was considered a can't-miss prospect. The Ottawa Senators selected him first overall and immediately signed him to what was the largest rookie contract in NHL history, $12.25 million over 5 years. The hype was enormous, with Daigle famously quipping, "I'm glad I got drafted first because no one remembers number 2, a comment that would haunt him as second pick Chris Pronger went on to a Hall of Fame career. Daigle showed flashes of brilliance in his rookie season, scoring 51 points. But the enormous expectations seemed to weigh heavily on the young Canadian. His production never matched his draft position, and his effort level was frequently questioned. While he had decent offensive skills, Daigle lacked the competitive drive and defensive awareness needed to become a complete NHL player. After 5 disappointing seasons in Ottawa, Daigle bounced around the league, playing for Philadelphia, Tampa Bay, New York, and Minnesota. He even left hockey completely for 2 years to pursue acting in Hollywood. When he returned to the NHL with Minnesota, he showed brief flashes of his potential, but consistency remained elusive. Daigle finished his NHL career with 327 points in 616 games, respectable numbers, but nowhere near what was expected from a first overall pick billed as the next Mario Lemieux. His story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of excessive hype and the psychological toll of unmet expectations. The talent was there, but the mental fortitude needed to handle the pressure of being a top pick proved more challenging than the game itself. The 1999 NHL draft is often considered one of the weakest in history, but even a thin draft, someone must go first. That someone was Patrik Stefan, selected by the Atlanta Thrashers. As a teenager playing against men in the IHL, Stefan had shown promise as a big, skilled center who could potentially anchor a franchise. The expansion Thrashers believed they had found their cornerstone player. Reality proved quite different. Stefan struggled from the beginning, managing just 5 goals in his rookie season. While injuries played a role in his difficulties, Stefan seemed to lack the confidence needed to succeed at the NHL level. His decision-making appeared hesitant, and the skills that had impressed scouts in the IHL didn't translate consistently to the faster, more physical NHL game. After 6 disappointing seasons in Atlanta, Stefan was traded to Dallas. His career, unfortunately, is now best remembered for one of hockey's most infamous blunders. In a 2007 game against Edmonton, Stefan had a breakaway on an empty net in the final seconds. Somehow, he lost control of the puck and fell, allowing Edmonton to race down the ice and score the tying goal with seconds remaining. That play, while just one moment in a career spanning for 155 games, became symbolic of Stefan's inability to meet expectations. He retired at 27 with just 188 points, leaving fans to wonder whether his struggles were mental, physical, or simply a case of scouts overestimating his potential. In the same draft, Henrik and Daniel Sedin were selected second and third, going on to Hall of Fame careers, a fact that makes Stefan's selection all the more painful in retrospect. When the Edmonton Oilers selected Nail Yakupov first overall in the 2012 NHL draft, they envisioned an electric goal scorer who would complement their young core of Taylor Hall and Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. Yakupov arrived with tremendous fanfare after dominating the Ontario Hockey League with his speed, shot, and enthusiasm for the game. His rookie season during the lockout-shortened 2012-13 campaign offered promise, as he scored 17 goals in 48 games and created a memorable celebration after a last-second tying goal against Los Angeles. Yakupov slid the length of the ice on his knees, arms raised in triumph, an image that seemed to foretell an exciting career. But that early success proved misleading. As Yakupov's career progressed, it became clear that there was a significant disconnect between his playing style and what his coaches expected. While immensely talented, Yakupov struggled with the defensive responsibilities and positional play demanded at the NHL level. The language barrier and cultural adjustment from Russia to Edmonton added another layer of difficulty. A carousel of coaching changes in Edmonton didn't help matters. Each new coach had different expectations, and Yakupov never seemed to find his footing. His confidence visibly eroded with each passing season as his ice time diminished and his role became increasingly marginal. After 4 disappointing seasons with the Oilers, Yakupov was traded to St. Louis for a modest return. Brief stints with the Blues and Colorado Avalanche followed, but neither rekindled the promise of his junior career. By 2018, at just 24 years old, Yakupov returned to Russia to play in the KHL. His NHL career ended with just 62 goals in 350 games, numbers that place him among the biggest draft disappointments in recent memory. Yakupov's story illustrates how even extraordinary talent can go unfulfilled when development, communication, and confidence issues remain unresolved. Some of hockey's greatest what-ifs involve players who never got a proper chance to showcase their talents in the NHL. Perhaps no player embodies this category better than Valeri Kharlamov, the Soviet star widely considered one of the most skilled players ever to lace up skates. North American fans caught glimpses of Kharlamov's brilliance during the 1972 Summit Series and other international competitions, where his speed, stick handling, and creativity left a lasting impression. Kharlamov's play was so impressive that the Montreal Canadiens drafted him in 1969, despite knowing the political reality would prevent him from joining their team. NHL stars of the era, including Phil Esposito and Bobby Clarke, considered him one of the most talented players they had ever faced. Clarke famously slashed Kharlamov in the 1972 Summit Series, breaking his ankle in a desperate attempt to neutralize the Soviet star's impact on the games. We'll never know what Kharlamov might have accomplished in the NHL because the Iron Curtain of the Cold War era made it impossible for Soviet players to join North American teams. His career was tragically cut short at age 33 when he died in a car accident in 1981. By then, he had won 2 Olympic gold medals and 8 world championships with the Soviet Union. Had Kharlamov been born a decade later, when Soviet players began to join NHL teams, he might be remembered alongside Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux in the pantheon of hockey legends. Instead, his legacy remains somewhat obscured, known primarily to hockey historians and fans who witness his artistry in international play, a generational talent whose circumstances prevented him from reaching his full potential on hockey's biggest stage. In 1981, Bobby Carpenter made history as the first American-born player to be selected in the first round of the NHL draft directly from high school. The Washington Capitals took him 3rd overall, and the hype surrounding the Massachusetts native was unprecedented. He appeared on the cover of Sports Illustrated under the headline "The Can't Miss Kid," with the magazine proclaiming him America's first potential hockey superstar. Carpenter's early years seemed to justify the excitement. He scored 32 goals in his second season and followed that with a remarkable 53-goal campaign in 1984-85, becoming the first American-born player to score 50 goals in an NHL season. At just 21 years old, Carpenter appeared poised to become the face of American hockey and lead a new generation of U.S.-born stars. But his career took an unexpected turn when conflicts with Washington's management led to a trade to the New York Rangers. This began a nomadic period where Carpenter bounced between teams, never again approaching his 50-goal form. Injuries played a role, but so did changing expectations. After his scoring outburst, teams expected Carpenter to be a premier offensive talent. When his production declined, he was labeled a disappointment. The irony is that Carpenter ultimately reinvented himself as a defensive forward and penalty-killing specialist, enjoying a respectable 18-year NHL career that included a Stanley Cup with the 1995 New Jersey Devils. He finished with 320 goals and 728 points in 1,178 games. Solid numbers by any standard. Yet Carpenter's career is often viewed through the lens of unmet expectations. The can't-miss kid missed becoming the superstar many had projected, not because he failed in the NHL, but because the expectations placed on him as a teenager were perhaps impossible to fulfill. His story illustrates how circumstances and timing, being anointed too early as the next great star, can shape the narrative around a player's career. When the New York Islanders selected goaltender Rick DiPietro 1st overall in the 2000 NHL draft, they believed they had found their franchise goaltender for the next decade. 6 years later, they doubled down on that belief by signing DiPietro to a landmark 15-year, $67.5 million contract, at the time one of the longest contracts in professional sports history. The deal seemed like a potential bargain if DiPietro developed as expected. He had shown flashes of brilliance, with quick reflexes, puck-handling skills that rivaled many forwards, and competitive fire that made him a fan favorite. In 2006 to 2007, DiPietro appeared to justify the Islanders' faith, winning 32 games and earning an All-Star selection. But fate had other plans for the American goaltender. What followed was a cruel series of injuries that derailed a promising career. Hip surgeries, knee surgeries, facial fractures, concussions. DiPietro's body betrayed him at every turn. By 2010, he had become more famous for his injuries and his play, appearing in just 47 games over his final 4 NHL seasons. The Islanders finally bought out the remainder of his contract in 2013, ending their relationship with DiPietro, but continuing to pay him $1.5 million annually until 2029. He finished his NHL career with just 130 wins in 318 games, a far cry from the Hall of Fame trajectory the Islanders had envisioned when they committed to him for 15 years. DiPietro's story is not simply about injuries derailing potential, but about how circumstances, in this case, a contract that became an albatross, can fundamentally change a player's career narrative. Had he signed a standard contract and suffered the same injury, he might be remembered as a promising goalie whose body failed him. Instead, his name became synonymous with ill-advised long-term contracts, overshadowing the talent that made him a first overall pick in the first place. We previously discussed Nail Yakupov's struggles with the mental aspects of the game, but his story is worth revisiting as one of the most recent and dramatic examples of unfulfilled potential. Selected first overall by the Edmonton Oilers in 2012, Yakupov arrived in the NHL with elite skating ability and a shot that had scouts comparing him to former Rocket Richard Trophy winners. His fall from top prospect to NHL afterthought was remarkably swift. After scoring 17 goals as a rookie, Yakupov's production and confidence seemed to diminish with each passing season. By 2016, just 4 years after being drafted, the Oilers traded him to St. Louis for merely a third-round pick, an astonishingly low return for a recent first overall selection. Brief stops in St. Louis and Colorado did little to revive his career. By 2018, Yakupov had returned to Russia to play in the KHL, effectively ending his NHL dream at just 24 years old. His final NHL stat line, 62 goals in 350 games, makes him one of the least productive first overall picks in modern draft history. What makes Yakupov's case particularly intriguing is a debate over responsibility. Was it Edmonton's development system, which was criticized during their decade of futility? Was it Yakupov's own reluctance to adapt his game? Or was he simply overrated by scouts who were dazzled by his offensive skills but missed deficiencies in his hockey sense and defensive awareness? The answer likely involves elements of all three, making Yakupov a complex case study in the science of player development and evaluation. When the New York Islanders selected Griffin Reinhart 4th overall in the 2012 NHL draft, they envisioned a cornerstone defenseman, a 6 feet 4 inches two-way presence who could anchor their blue line for years to come. Reinhart had an impressive junior career with the Edmonton Oil Kings of the WHL, showcasing defensive responsibility, leadership as team captain, and enough offensive ability to project as a top-pair defenseman. But Reinhart's development stalled in the transition from junior hockey to professional ranks. His skating, adequate in junior hockey, proved insufficient for the increasingly fast-paced NHL. While he had excellent defensive positioning and reach, his lack of foot speed meant he struggled to defend against quicker forwards. After appearing in just 8 games for the Islanders, Reinhart was traded to the Edmonton Oilers in a deal that would have major ramifications. The Islanders received the 16th and 33rd picks in the 2015 draft, selections they used to draft Matthew Barzal and Anthony Beauvillier, who became key players in New York's resurgence. Reinhart fared no better in Edmonton, playing just 29 games before being selected by Vegas in the 2017 expansion draft. He never played a game for the Golden Knights, spending his time in the AHL before his contract expired. By 2021, at just 27 years old, Reinhart was playing in Germany, his NHL dream effectively over after just 37 career games. Reinhart's case illustrates how difficult projecting defensemen can be, particularly in an era when skating ability has become increasingly crucial. It also shows how player development is not a linear process. Even prospects who excel at lower levels may hit development ceilings that prevent them from becoming effective NHL players. Jesse Puljujarvi arrived in the NHL with tremendous promise. Selected 4th overall by the Edmonton Oilers in 2016, the Finnish winger had dominated the World Junior Championship, earning MVP honors while showcasing an enticing combination of size, speed, and scoring touch. Many draft experts considered him a steal at 4th overall, with some ranking him second behind only Austin Matthews. But Puljujarvi's NHL career quickly became complicated. Language barriers created communication challenges with coaches. His on-ice confidence seemed to waver as he struggled to produce consistently. The Oilers alternated between playing him in limited minutes on the NHL roster and sending him to the AHL for development, an approach that appeared to further dent his confidence. After 3 frustrating seasons, Puljujarvi returned to Finland to play for Carpenter in the Finnish Liga. There, away from the intense scrutiny of the NHL, he rediscovered his game and rebuilt his confidence. This led to a return to Edmonton in 2020, where he showed flashes of improvement but still couldn't consistently produce at a level befitting his draft position. In 2022, he was traded to Carolina and later signed with Pittsburgh before returning to Europe. While still young enough to potentially revive his NHL career, Puljujarvi has thus far fallen well short of the expectations that came with his draft position. His case highlights the challenges of developing young players, particularly those from Europe, and the importance of organizational patience, clear communication, and proper support systems. The stories of these unfulfilled potentials remind us of the unpredictable nature of player development. For all the advanced statistics, combined testing, and psychological evaluations that go into draft preparation, hockey remains stubbornly difficult to forecast. Physical talents that dominate at lower levels may not translate to the NHL. Mental fortitude can prove as important as physical gifts. And circumstances, from injuries to organizational stability to simple luck, play an enormous role in determining whether a prospect becomes a star or a cautionary tale. There's also a deeply human element to these stories that's often overlooked. Behind each draft bust label is a young player who had to face tremendous pressure, disappointment, and often public criticism while still in their early 20s. For every Alexandre Daigle who finds peace with his hockey legacy, there are others who struggle with the weight of unmet expectations. These cautionary tales have changed how NHL teams approach scouting and development. Many organizations now place greater emphasis on psychological assessments and character evaluations. Player development staffs have expanded, with dedicated coaches and support personnel working to ensure prospects receive proper guidance. Teams are generally more patient, understanding that not all players develop at the same rate. Yet for all these advances, the NHL draft remains an inexact science. There will always be sure-thing prospects who fail to meet expectations and late-round picks who blossom into stars. That uncertainty is part of what makes following hockey so compelling. The knowledge that potential is just that, potential, until it's realized on the ice at the highest level of the game.